Welcome to another edition of Practical Welding Television. I'm your host, Amanda Carlson. Today we're sticking to the basics with SMAW, also known as stick or arc welding. Stick welding is known for its flexible nature and its ability to weld a number of different metals. We're here today with Mike Merriman and Larry Clevenger of Rock Valley College, and they're going to walk us through the basics of stick welding. So let's get started. So we're in the shop here with Mike, and like I said before, we're going to be talking about SMAW. Mike, what does the SMAW stand for?
SMAW stands for shielded metal arc welding.
Okay, and where is this process commonly used?
Process is used quite often in construction industries, machine repair, such as farming, and pipeline welding.
Okay, could you maybe go through some of the advantages and then disadvantages of this process?
Major advantage of SMAW is that it's very versatile. It's very portable. The portability of it means a lot. You can go to remote places and perform welding process without having to carry special equipment such as gas tanks, something like that. Doesn't require any. So portability, I think, is probably the biggest advantage. Disadvantage, it takes a little while to learn the process.
We've got 4 different electrodes here. What's the process for selecting the electrode for your particular job?
Well, the first thing you want to do is identify the type of material that you want to weld. There are many different types of material. We have welding rods for steel, there's welding rods for stainless steel, there's welding rods for aluminum, which isn't used too much nowadays. There are other processes that weld aluminum a lot better, but you got to match that to the type of material first. And then also the next thing is the type of position that you're going to weld, and also the thickness of material that you're going to weld. The thickness is a factor in selecting the size of rod. Is there a particular electrode that's easier to use or more difficult to use? Yes, there are. When we have a beginning student starting out learning to weld, we select some of the rods that are a little bit easier to strike an arc, a little bit user-friendly. Larry refers to them as sissy rods, but it does build their skill a little bit faster and builds their confidence a little bit faster. We're here with Larry, and Larry's just about to tell us how to initiate an arc.
Well, there's a couple ways to initiate a start on it, and one is a bump start, which you would go down, hit the metal, and come up just about 1/8 of an inch, let the arc get going, and then just start your travel speed. The other one is a scratch start, which is like striking a match. You would strike it, and then you would pick it up about 1/16 or 1/8 of an inch, and then you would then travel on with your bead then that way.
What's your favorite way?
I like the bump start because I find it to be easier. I can drop it down or bump it down and then come right up, and then I can take off on my bead, and it makes it just that much easier for me to do.
One of the reasons they call it stick welding is obviously the electrode looks like a stick, but also sometimes the electrode has a tendency to stick to the workpiece. So do you have any advice on how to prevent that from happening?
Well, sometimes when a stick rod will stick to your work, you're low on your amperage. And sometimes it's just the way that you handle the rod. So then you would have to just make sure that you always have the air gap or the arc length in there at a proper length, so that you can travel without it grounding out to the workpiece.
Okay. And speaking of arc length, once you finally get started, what's the proper arc length, and then what's the proper travel speed?
Well, the arc length is the distance between the end of this rod and the workpiece, and it comes down about 1/16 of an inch or so. And then your travel speed is about laying the bead down. That's a width about 2 times of the welding rod as you're moving, and you can determine that by looking at the weld as you travel.
All right, we've talked about it. Now Larry's going to demonstrate it, starting with the bump start. Right, Larry?
Right. I'm going to do the bump start with what I call the sissy rod. This is a real easy rod to get started, and you can really make it, everybody think you're a great welder. Okay, now this is the bump start with 60 or 70-14. As I travel forward, I'm trying to make it the bead twice the distance of that rod. You can tell by this it's a very easy rod to get started. This is 6013, which is another easy rod to get started. And I just travel slowly to make sure that I get the width that I want for my travel speed. Now this is 7018. This is used throughout the industry and is the best stick rod that we got. Yeah. They weld quite similar to each other. Your travel speed is the same. The width of the bead, the arc length is the same. Now I have one more, 6010. This is a deep cutting rod that can dig through paint, rust, and everything else. You'll see a little bit more spatter out of this one. And it sticks too. Okay, now we're going to clean the slag off the 7014 first. Chip it, comes right off, comes off in a solid piece. 13 should do about the same. 7018 is going to be a little bit harder to make it come off. And there's hardly no slag on the 10.
In closing, Mike, what do you tend to say to your students when they're first getting started with this? Any tips or tricks?
First thing we want to do is to select the proper welding rod, the proper number and the size for the job that you're going to be doing, and the type of material that you're going to be welding. So we get our electrodes selected. Then we have to make sure that our machine is properly set for the type of electrode and welding that we're going to do. That is proper polarity on the machine and the proper amperage for the size and type of rod we're going to be using. Then we want the students to use the proper angles. There's a couple of them: work angle and travel angle, and we got to make sure that those are proper. And we once we have those angles set, then we want the student to get comfortable and do basically a dry run, would establish the proper arc length and travel speed. So I like them to do a dry run first before they ever even strike the arc. Attaching the welding rod to the stinger, there's several ways to do it. You can attach it like this. You can have the welding rod coming straight out from the end. A lot of people will do that when they weld overhead. It can be on an angle like that. It can be on an angle like this. I don't like any of them myself. I stress to the students a method that I had one of my old welding instructors years ago taught me how to do. That's put it on an angle, and then I bend it, and then I can rotate it. And that helps, gives me a little bit more flexibility in establishing my proper angles. And the majority of the students that try this really like that once they get used to using it.
But it's pretty much user preference, whatever makes you comfortable.
Get yourself comfortable. No matter what process you're doing, you're welding, getting comfortable means so much to making the proper weld.
Thank you guys so much for everything, and thank you for joining us. If you have any questions or ideas for future episodes, please feel free to email me. If you're one of the first 20 people to write in, we'll send you your own limited edition Practical Welding television hat. So we want to hear from you. From all of us here, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.